Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Morhonda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard on this Monday. Appreciate you being with us. Jim Coyle here, as always. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, ready to roll. Greg Rakestraw on the dais, along with Todd Leary. Dustin Dopirak as well from the Indy Star. Plenty to talk about as a weekend of action. And Greg is with us now, and we'll start right with the Colts, as the NFL was stacked and packed all weekend. A couple of games yesterday, but most of them coming on Saturday, including the Colts 21-13 went over the Arizona Cardinals. Greg, how was your weekend, sir?
Weekend was great. Laid back, other than calling a National Football League game on Saturday night. And what used to be week 4 of the preseason, where you would play most of your backups and you rest your starters, heading into the regular season opener. Now that has become kind of week 2, the way the pattern works for the Colts, because they had those midweek practices with the Cardinals. So the ones got their reps against the Cardinals on Wednesday and Thursday. It was the 2s, the 3s, the 4s that played most of the way on Saturday night. And the Colts were the better team. I mean, they won 21-13. Frankly, the stats were a little more lopsided than that. I think the Cardinals are going to be very good. So, frankly, it was a team that the Colts kind of needed to beat, and they did. So,
hey, Greg, you're breaking up really bad.
There you go. We're going to have you jump out and jump it back in. Make sure we have the best connection possible, as Greg Rakestraw joining us from the from ISB Sports Network. But over the weekend, the Indianapolis Colts, as he called the game on TV, as I happened to catch that broadcast. I hope you guys did too. Plenty of other games as we're getting closer and closer. I think one more game. The final game coming up this Thursday is the Colts will take on the Bengals this Thursday. But yesterday, Greg is back with us now. Greg, I didn't get to see all of the game, but Shane Steichen, apparently this was a great game as far as getting production from people you didn't necessarily expect.
Well, what's unique about this Colts roster this year, Jim, is the fact that, and again, this is for the preseason. It won't be the case when the regular season starts. Most teams carry 4 quarterbacks. Sometimes teams, shorten that to 3. The Colts have gone the other direction. They carried 5 quarterbacks this year in training camp.
And I'm not one of them.
And so they decided to sit Richardson and Flacco. They played 3. So the pecking order was Sam Ehlinger, who obviously now is in his 4th year with the team. Then quarterback number 2 is Jason Bean. Jason is a guy that was kind of listed as both a quarterback and a wide receiver. The folks at Kansas were going to potentially make a position change with him last year. They'd elected not to. Colts kind of thinking about the same thing. Think they've liked what they've seen from a quarterback and to keep him there. And then Keaton Slovis, who was, a great quarterback at USC, but then also spent time at both Pittsburgh as well as BYU. Slovis is not going to be a guy that's going to make the roster, I don't think, even though, frankly, all guys have looked solid. I think the real question, Jim, is twofold in terms of backup quarterback. Last year the Colts carried 3 quarterbacks until Anthony Richardson got hurt and was put on IR. Then it became simply Gardner Minshew and Sam Ehlinger as the backup. The rules are a bit different now in terms of it's much easier to kind of stash a 3rd quarterback and bring that guy up if necessary on the practice squad. So I think, does Sam Ehlinger take a roster spot or is he on the practice squad? One of the two. But then secondarily, do you potentially keep 2 quarterbacks on your 16-player practice squad because they've really liked what they've seen from Jason Bean? Even though Ehlinger's got really good mobility, Bean is probably a guy that would most replicate Anthony Richardson in terms of what this offense would like to do. So if we're talking about roster issues with your 3rd and 4th quarterback, in theory, that means it's a pretty good sign as to how deep and how talented this Indianapolis Colts roster is.
Should Colts fans expect to see Anthony Richardson this Thursday?
They will, and he will play, frankly, the most that he has played during the course of the preseason. So he played just 7 snaps in the preseason opener against the Broncos. Last year, he played 35 snaps in the preseason finale against the Eagles. I think it'll be somewhere in the middle of that. I think he'll play into the second quarter. You just want to see him get kind of more live reps. Much like last week, the Colts will practice against the Bengals, this time down in Cincinnati. They will practice once on Tuesday against each other, and then they will play the game on Thursday night. So my guess would be somewhere in the 20-ish snap range for Anthony Richardson. And obviously, if it's Anthony Richardson, that means it's the entire number 1 offense. The one exception I think we would see from that would be, I'm not sure we will see Jonathan Taylor. He did play 2 series in week number 1. And normally you kind of put your running backs in a glass case, knowing they're going to get hit on every play. You can kind of avoid that with the quarterback, not so much with the running back. So I'm not sure if we will see, JT. We might see him, though, for this reason. Trey Sermon is the guy that is the number 2 running back. He has dealt with a hamstring injury. He suffered that in that first preseason game against the Broncos. And so maybe we see Sermon, maybe we don't. And just because of kind of the numbers game, there's really only 4 other running backs in camp. Maybe we see a bit of Jonathan Taylor on Thursday, but it would not surprise me if he doesn't play at all.
From what you've seen, from your vantage point, are they where they should be, where they expected to be as far as going into the season? I know it's hard to tell when you're not getting to see all of the players, especially at the same time, because that synchronicity is of grave importance. But you see them all the time. You see them in practice. You see them in the game situations. Are they ahead of where you thought that they would be, or right where?
I would say, Jim, they're in pretty good shape. There was really only the idea of maybe a couple of 3 position battles or kind of open starting spots. It appears that the starting safety opposite Julian Blackmon is going to be Nick Cross. He and Juju Brents were the only starters that played any level of significant plays or just simply played at all in terms of the game on Saturday. Brents, because he didn't get to play in week number 1, he suffered an injury, but we think it's a broken nose that he suffered. And if you're going to have an injury, that's the place to have an injury. You kind of know what the timeline is on that. So maybe we see Juju on Thursday, maybe not. But again, he's going to be one of the starting cornerbacks come September the 8th. In terms of the safety position, Julian Blackmon can play either spot and has played both spots in the National Football League. Nick Cross can kind of give him the, similar kind of flexibility. The other guys, Rodney Thomas, if he plays, he has to be a free safety, 3rd-year player out of Yale. Ronnie Harrison, who they brought in from the Browns middle of last year and kind of popped late in the season, Ronnie's kind of almost a hybrid linebacker. And so Ronnie had to play the strong safety position. So I think it's really been trying to determine who is the guy that fits best for this defense opposite Julian Blackmon. It looks like it's Nick Cross. Nick is in his 3rd year, 3rd-round draft pick out of Maryland. And again, Nick was drafted at a ridiculously young age. He turned 21 the day he played his first NFL game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He doesn't turn 23 until a couple of weeks. So it's taken him some time to kind of learn a little bit, but seemingly he has figured some things out. So I think that position battle has been determined. The other side of the ball would be wide receiver. Well, the Josh Downs injury has kind of moved A.D. Mitchell into the slot, and so there hasn't been kind of that position battle at wide receiver. In tight end, I think it's going to be a rotation. I really think the decision at tight end is not who is starting. Mo Ali Cox in rundowns, Kylan Granson in passing downs. It's more along the lines of they've got 5 guys that have experience with this team. Most teams carry 3 tight ends. We kind of think this one is going to carry 4 because of how they use them. And who's the 5th guy out? Is it the guy whose name is called in the open of this show? Jelani Woods may be the guy that is on the outside looking in when the roster cut down happens. I know that Brian has asked the question via the chat room, when is cut down day? That would be next Tuesday, August 27th, was when the roster goes from 90 to 53. And then the next day you start building up the 16-man practice squad. So
it's kind of
the case of this team all year long, is that the position battles have been for the back end of the roster, Jim, more so than, say, the starting lineup.
Yeah, Tuesday's like Black Tuesday, man. A lot of guys getting that notice, that pink slip, so to speak, although some will make it onto the practice squad. many will not. They'll be out of a job and looking for a job elsewhere, or hoping to catch on someplace else. But that obviously is very, very tough. When you're, literally almost cutting that number in half. That's a lot. That's a lot of guys.
But Jim, I will say this, is that the practice squad regulations are a lot looser than they used to be. The practice squad at one point in time was 5 guys. Then it became 8. Now it's 16. Those guys make about $150,000, $160,000, if not more. And it used to be you could only have a certain level of NFL experience or games played on the practice squad. And really, that's not the case. There are guys that are NFL vets that are on the practice squad. So you're right. You make a whole lot more money if you're on the 53-man roster than being on the 69-man roster. And yes, in theory, 37 guys get cut, no more than 16 come back. So a lot of guys are kind of out there in the ether. But and I see this in studying for preseason games. There is now almost this subset of players that are practice squad guys for 4, 5, 6 years and make a pretty good living doing that. And so there is a bit more job opportunity for these guys than in years gone by. The other thing, Jim, that I would add is this. There is always the case of, hey, just because you made the first cut doesn't mean you make the second one, because, again, 37 players from 32 teams all become free agents. And sometimes you'll see somebody in the waiver wire and go, hey, that guy's better than the ones we have here. There's only one place where I think that might be the case with this football team. Do not be surprised if the Colts bring in a veteran offensive lineman. Again, their starting 5 is set. Their kind of first backup at a couple positions is set in Matt Gonzalez, who is the 3rd-round pick out of Pittsburgh. But Blake Freeland, who was their 4th-round pick last year and started 9 games, had 7 replacing Braden Smith at right tackle, had 2 replacing Bernard Ryman at left tackle. He has not looked good in practices. He did not play well in the game on Saturday. I don't think the Colts are going to cut him, but it would not surprise me if there is a veteran tackle available if the Colts bring in an insurance policy after that first cut down day on the 27th.
So what is up next for the ISC Sports Network? I know you've got double duties going on with all your actually triple, quadruple duties going in every different direction, but managing that as well, as we're about upon the time where the live action starts coming. High school football's around the corner and all sorts of other things, college football as well.
Well, the schedule footprint is very unique this year because, and this is the reason why, that there are 2 bye weeks in the college football season for Indiana or Purdue. Labor Day is early and Thanksgiving is late. And I bring that up in the conversation. Thanksgiving weekend is what sets the IHSAA calendar. And so the IHSA season moved back a week this year. And so everything starts this week from a competition standpoint. For football, of course, that means that's on Friday night. It's Labor Day weekend that sets the NFL calendar because the NFL always starts the weekend after Labor Day weekend. So that's my long-winded way, Jim, of saying my Colts season from a preseason standpoint is over before my high school football season starts. So I'll be a part of the radio network on Thursday, but Al Michaels wants to continue taking, food off my kid's plate because for the second year in a row, Amazon Prime has the 3rd Colts preseason game. So Rick Venturi and I get 2. So I do not make the trip to Cincinnati on Thursday. I get to stay back and just do the postgame show from 11 at night until 2 in the morning. But my focus largely for this week will be on getting ready for the high school football season. So we at ISC will produce 4 different games that fans can see at iscsportsnetwork.com or ihsaatv.org. You're listening this morning from the Indianapolis area. We're back on 23 for what will be a 6th season. And we kick it off with Lawrence Central and Lawrence North. And again, are there games that will have a bigger impact on the rankings in the top 10 of the state of Indiana? Probably, I think both those teams are kind of borderline top 10 teams this season and potentially have a chance to win a sectional championship. I do think that's the case. But at the same time, Jim, there's no bigger rivalry game in this area than those 2. Fisher's HSE would be of similar ilk, maybe to a lesser degree, Perry and Southport on the south side, and people can kind of quickly figure out the correlation there. 2 teams, same school district. Whatever you do in your season is really based on, Did you beat your next door neighbor? Well, this game had been in week 3 for the last decade or so. They have moved it back to week number 1. So I would imagine we're looking at 8,000 fans likely at Lawrence Central on Friday night. Maybe one of the biggest crowds that we get to see all regular season long. And that's the game that Lance Scheib and I have on Friday night, 7 o'clock on my Indy TV 23.
Man, that's the way to kick it off with the fireworks right off the bat.
Right.
Woo. Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network, and make sure you're following him and keeping up with all the content they are popping out because it's got plentiness and it's coming starting this week. Greg, thank you, sir. We appreciate you as always.
Thanks, buddy. See you next Monday.
Absolutely. Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Todd Leary up next here on the program. Back with more right after this.
Segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator.
Yes. Good job.
Thank you. Running smooth today. Was feeling a little slow this morning, but
don't say that.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to jinx it. Yeah.
Jeez.
We go back at 1850.
All right.
College football next week or this weekend, right?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Week 0.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. But that is true. So ooh.
Go back in 20 seconds. There he is. Howdy. Go on in 10 seconds.
Can you hear me? There we go.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, we
I
are.
wasn't sure if we're good.
We're good.
One
We're
more
going
week.
on in,
One more week before the switch happens.
3,
Good.
2.
This segment is brought to you by the Fresh Fork in Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Getting your week started. Appreciate you being with us. Todd Leary, the shot father, with us now from myjumpshot.com. For those of you that know of anybody that needing some work on their jump shot heading into the season coming out, doesn't matter when, the shot father's the guy to do it. Todd Leary, how are you, sir?
I'm great. It's a beautiful Monday morning.
How was your weekend?
It was good. I had crazy storms over the weekend, as you know, around here, but got my golf in. I'm all set.
Did you?
Yep.
Or,
I didn't play very good. But I played.
Speaking of which, we've got the Never Lose Hoop golf outing this Thursday. For those of you that can make it, I'll get that information up in a little bit. But yeah, looking forward to that. I haven't checked the weather for that. I hope it's going to be
Beautiful,
not hot and nice. I hope so.
Yeah, it's actually going to be a great day for that. The next weekend gets super hot again, but I think Wednesday and Thursday the high's like 78.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
What have you ever seen a July or August like this? I mean, we've gotten both like that. July and August has been just delicious.
It has been, but next weekend it gets back up in the mid 90s, so you will hate that.
That's okay. That's what it's supposed to be. I'll just hide someplace in a corner. We're closer to college football and basketball, of course, as both are heading this way. But God's a college football fan just as much as anything. Looking forward to this season getting started and see what the Hoosiers can do. When you were in school, see they had just come off of Bill Mallory, so things weren't going well, and basketball was still sky high. Did you guys go to the football games a lot?
We did. We would. It was a big recruiting thing back then. Would be when kids would come in for visits. Obviously, everything has changed so much now that almost sounds archaic. But yeah, we used to take them to. It was kind of a big deal to get to take good recruits out because you'd get to go to eat at Zagreb's and get a good meal and a bunch of free stuff, and so that made it fun and worthwhile. But yeah, we would go to the football games. They would sneak us in these tunnels I didn't even know existed, and somehow we'd wind up on the field, and yeah, it was fun, and but nothing. When I go and watch, programs like Georgia and Alabama and even Ohio State, stuff like that, like it's a different experience. It's like we try to explain to people what basketball is like in the state of Indiana. It's a different experience going to like the Horseshoe or going and watching a game at one of these gigantic Big Ten places that packs the arena every week, Michigan and Ohio State. So yeah, it's a different animal, but yes, we did go and we loved going to those games.
Yeah, they have actually reconfigured how Indiana football comes out. They here in recent years, after they enclosed both end zones, the weight room was on the north? Yeah, the north end, and so they would always come out from in essence, in the middle of the field, the weight room. But now they have reconstructed to where they actually have a tunnel to come out of, and they're not coming out of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Getting it to more of a traditional type of college start.
Right.
And so looking forward to that as well. Also over the weekend, some college basketball news as Malachi Moreno committed to Kentucky. Not a huge shock. There was a lot of hope that Indiana would be the name he called because of his relationships with Braylon Mullins and Trent Sisley, but he's heading to Kentucky. Of course, it's right next door. Not unexpected. His mom is very close to him, and she will be able to go see all of his home games that way. So not a big surprise. A little bit of a surprise because Mark Pope has no track record of doing anything, and yet Mike Whitson does have that going on. But I hate to say it's not a loss because, of course, he's a great talent, but that's a spot that I think Mike Whitson would probably rather get someone out of the portal and a little bit more ready to play than, say, a freshman out of high school.
Yeah, and the shock would have been had Malachi Moreno gone anywhere other than Kentucky. Not just because of the proximity to being home, although I do think that was by far the biggest factor. He's grown up a fan of Kentucky. There's just everything made sense for him to go there, and his relationship with his family and mom being able to come to all the games. And I was able to meet her in South Carolina this summer. A fantastic woman, just a fun group to be around. The only hope I think that we held on to was the fact that, yeah, he did play on that Indiana elite team with Mullins and Sisley. And so there was that tie, hoping that, they might all kind of bundle themselves together and go to the same spot. And now we're obviously definitely hoping that doesn't happen since Malachi's committed to Kentucky. This is what I do. I respect the heck out of the fact that he went ahead and committed and got it over with. He's got to be done with the courtship. Like that gets, I know it sounds fun and it's awesome. I'm surprised a lot of times at how long kids don't commit just to get this over with. All the schools telling you how great you are and wanting you to come on visits it's good and fun and awesome for a little while, but man, it gets taxing after a bit. So it doesn't surprise me that he chose to go ahead and do it now. It surprises me that more kids don't choose to get it over with and done and behind them so that they can focus on other things. But the shock would have been if he didn't go to Kentucky, in my opinion.
I agree with you, Todd. It's a little surprising because we're not seeing it happen. And I think a big part of that is because these guys are allowed to take more visits now. And so they're like, what the heck have I got to lose, man? Why would I not go to Los Angeles and visit UCLA? Why would I not take a trip to Florida or wherever the case may be? But at the same time, if you already know in your heart, and I'm thinking when the kid that makes a decision this soon after, and he had visits scheduled with Indiana coming up with Mullins and Sicily the same weekend in September. A month from now. But to go ahead and make that decision now, he must know in his heart. And I have so much respect for a kid that does that. And I hate to call him a kid because if you have enough maturity to do that, you're not a kid. You're mature and you're not wasting your time. You're not wasting their time. You're not wasting people's money. I agree with you. Man, do I have respect for that.
Yeah, totally. And so there are, and I'm not acting like I know all of what people think about and go through and the questions they run through their situation when you're deciding what school to go to. But I know enough about it to know, like, the biggest factors are the coaching staff and the how they play, proximity to home. Will your family and friends be able to see you play? And then the NIL situation. I think those are the three biggest factors. And then after that, I think comes like the facilities and like your dorms and that kind of stuff, or where you'll stay and all that. I don't think that's as big a factor. It's a wow factor when you go on those visits. It's kind of the wow factor a lot of schools use. And it's awesome. That's great for the kids, especially. But the big factors, I think, are what kind of style they play, how you're going to fit into that. And, I do think having your parents in a lot of situations be able to come and to your games on not just a regular basis, but all your games is a big factor. And the NIL situation in today's world, like, he's rated so high, his offers at most of the big schools are all going to be pretty similar, I would assume. I mean, if somebody really wanted to match an offer that Kentucky was going to make or Kansas was going to make, they could. He's that level of player where you would make that commitment. But I think in this scenario, I think this one is a little bit different. And I think Kentucky would have had to do something really wrong and to lose him as their top recruit and a guy that goes to Lexington.
And it should be that way. I mean, that's how it should be.
That's how we hope it is, because that's hopefully, and I will say this for the state of Indiana in general. Obviously, we're IU homers, and I lead that pack. But I hope Mullins and Sicily stay in the state of Indiana. Like I really want them to come to IU, obviously, but I hope that they stay in the state of Indiana, because that's a loss for the whole state. And I do love basketball in general, so like I support them. I support all our teams here in Indiana being good, even the Learning Barn up there in Lafayette.
I've never heard that one, I don't think. Yeah, that's funny. But I can see a situation very, very, very easily now where you've got these three that were a trio that Indiana was chasing, winds up at Kentucky, Indiana, and Purdue. where they'll be playing against each other in college after being on that team together, because Kentucky back on the schedule. That's, I guess, next season. So just in time for that. Perfect. So that scenario is one that can play out, or Indiana can land both. We'll see. We've got, but that also opens up a spot, because they were not going to land all three of those guys. Not when you're chasing Jalen Harrelson, as well as some of these other top-ranked guys. You're not going to bring in 5 freshmen anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, that's going to be a rarity. There might be some. You're right. There might be some circumstances or instances where that would be the case. I don't think it fits Mike Woodson's style, which I don't think it probably fits hardly anyone's style anymore. Shouldn't single out Indiana and Mike Woodson, because it's just not really something I think coaches and programs want to put themselves in that position anymore, because the likelihood, if you get, let's say, 4 or 5 kids to come in and recruit, the likelihood of being able to hang on to them for multiple years is not great, because you're going to have the Fab 5 situation. You can see that doesn't come along and happen very often. And It's not super successful when it does happen. Kentucky proved that over the years. They win a lot of games, but they don't win championships. And so the ability to make everyone happy when they come in that scenario, and then, quite frankly, I don't think it needs to happen. This is the whole NIL situation and transfer portal. I mean, the people that it hurts the most, and this sucks, but it's just the reality. I'm not in charge of it, so don't get mad at me. But the people it hurts the worst are the high school kids and the kids that are not getting recruited. But it doesn't mean they are not going to get recruited. It just means they have to go through a little bit different process. I'll call it a little bit harder, longer process. But the end result is better, because at the end of the day, you go prove yourself at a smaller school, you're going to make a lot of money when you transfer to that bigger school. So there's a carrot at the end of all your hard work and everything that you put in and do out there. It just is a little different process that we all have to get used to understanding. It is different, and we're old people. We don't necessarily like different. We don't like change as much as we don't accept it as fast as I think we probably should, and be as open-minded to it as I think we should.
Yeah, the freshman situation. I look at Purdue and Matt Painter bringing all those guys in this year. Now that has changed. I don't think you want 1/3 of your team being freshmen, or even more than that if you include sophomores being underclassmen. Experience makes a huge difference, and so the portal allows you to make a much better mix of that, with more experience and less freshmen, and let them. It's like buying a new car. Everybody says, I'd rather buy one with a year older and let somebody else take the depreciation.
Yeah, but when you look at, so Purdue is unique in how they're built, and that's a culture and a structure thing, and how they're put together right now, and they're in a really good position. Their battles are different than what usual most schools are battling right now. And that doesn't mean it's better, or it doesn't mean it's worse. It's just different, because you know what their roster is going to be. You know the minutes that are going to be on the floor, of players that are going to be on the floor for those minutes. They have veteran guys that have already played a lot of minutes that are in those positions. They're not really – they'll have one, probably 2 positions that kids are battling for minutes. But you know Braden Smith's going to be on the floor, and you know Fletcher Lawyer is going to be on the floor, and you know Kaufman Wren's going to be on the floor. And then you got the Heidi freshman kid they had last year. He's going to be on the floor. He's really good, in my opinion. And so they have a unique situation, because they can bring in freshmen. Their problem that they have to deal with is keeping all of those freshmen happy. Because like I said, you bring in 4 kids, they're not going to get a ton of playing time. They're just not. I mean, I think they lost the kid earlier this summer, and it was for that reason specifically, because he wasn't going to walk in and start. He's a top 50 kid. He's not going to walk in and start at Purdue, because they kind of have a structured roster that they kind of know who's going to be on the floor already. And so, but they can also take this time to develop those younger guys. Now, that's going to be the hard part for them, is being able to keep kids that commit and come there for a year if they're not playing a whole lot, because they know they can transfer somewhere else and get paid money and get on the floor right away. So that's going to be their battle, and it's just different. It's a different battle. Every school is going to battle something, and that's going to be their problem, which most schools are not having to deal with right now.
Todd Leary with us right now. He says that there are lots of guys out there similar to Sisley. I'm going to tell you why I disagree with that when we come back after this break. Todd Leary with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with more right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
Where are you headed today?
Down to Kentucky eventually.
Down to Kentucky.
Yep.
Where did you play? Here at the
Eagle Point. Yeah. Friday we played at Otis Park.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I had an outing.
Oh. It wasn't the what's his name, was it? The old actor, Claude Akins.
No. I'm saying Eagle Point had an outing, so we went to Otis Park.
Yeah, the old Claude Akins is down there at
Claude
Eagle.
Akins. Yeah. I played in that before.
I have not played in that.
Damon took me to that years ago.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
What's he like as a golfer?
He's good. He's athletic. He doesn't practice a whole lot, or he didn't used to. I shouldn't say that. He didn't used to practice a whole lot. He's just one of those. He's got great hand-eye coordination, so he's pretty good.
I was out last night walking in the mailbox, and I saw some kids teeing off of 18, and I'm like, shook my head because I could see how much harder they were swinging.
Yeah.
How much stronger they are, and I'm just like, gosh, dang it. I go, you want to wonder where your distance is gone. I go, there it is right there. You're old, man.
Yeah, it's it. I mean, getting old, it just happens because like
Looser,
their flexibility. Yeah.
Yes.
I got three boys that all have really good golf swings, and their flexibility is just different. I mean, they don't stretch or do anything or work out or like that for golf. Like they just are flexible.
1 minute.
A lot of people doubting Trent Sisley. I don't understand.
Yeah, who said that? Just a minute
several. Let's see how he fares at Montverde. Big stepped up from Southwestern Indiana. Man, y'all.
That's why he's there. That's why he's going.
Y'all, but y'all are not paying attention to what he does. And there's a lot of things I just don't think people understand as far as he's a very great team player. No, I just think that because he doesn't get the pub that the other guys get.
Right.
Because I'm going to guess most have not seen him.
$15.
You're spoiling us with these countdowns, dude.
5. 3.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. Jim Coyle with you and Todd Leary as well. Talking some upcoming college basketball. It's a little ways off now, but the recruiting still happening. Malachi Moreno committing to Kentucky over the weekend or at the end of last week. So, but lots of visits still scheduled to be happening this fall. And one person that I want to talk about is Trent Sisley. There's so many people that seem to not think that he is as worthy of chasing as some of these other guys. And I'm like, man, you just haven't seen him play. And I don't mean that he's this 5-star all-star, but he is someone who is a team player, number one, who is talented by being a shooter, can play inside, will play defense. He played against Mikal Brown this summer. He plays great defense. So he's somebody that you definitely want to land.
Yeah, no, I don't. This is one of those scenarios where I think we fall into a category of one or two, three people might voice their opinion of maybe their displeasure because he left Indiana high school basketball to go to Montverde. But I mean, if you, I'll tell you who's not saying those comments are coaches that watch him play and watch him do the little things and watch him score a lot of points and make 3-pointers. And, he shoots a great percentage. He plays hard. I think Montverde is the perfect scenario for him because it's going to he's going to speed up his process of improvement and development. And honestly, I know we get criticized for saying this, and it sucks because we don't like the change. I don't like that he had to leave the state of Indiana in order to go play against better competition, but it's the reality and it's true and it's a fact. And if it was my son, I would have sent him to do the same thing. And I think a lot of the people that criticize that decision would probably make that same decision if it was their kid as well. And, Trent Sicily's game speaks for itself, and all coaches want players like him on their team, and they want him on their team. He has a great attitude. He checks every single box, and that is. I'm just going to say this, and I won't even throw other names in this. I will just say, of all the kids that I watched when I went to South Carolina, there was probably only 4 or 5 kids that I would say checked all of the boxes. And when you say all the boxes in my world, I mean not just what they did on the court, but how they interacted with their teammates, how they interacted with their coaches, how they interacted with the referees and the other people on the other team, just their whole demeanor in general. Those are all boxes. And there's probably 4 or 5 total kids that I saw in South Carolina that checked all of the boxes, and Trent Sicily was one of them. And I'll just say he was the only one on that Indiana Elite team that I would say checked all of the boxes. Now, a lot of those guys check the big boxes that the coaches are looking at because they think they can groove them into however they want them to act. But Trent Sicily is already mature and already a kid that every single coach is going to want a kid like him on their team.
And I don't know if Purdue has the front runner in this or not. I know that they have recruited him very harder than
anyone else. Yep.
Absolutely, not even close. To be honest with you, yep. It's not even close. So, but with him going to Montverde, I don't think that changes Trent's recruiting at all. I think he already knows which schools he's going to decide between. I don't care if Kansas, well, I guess I shouldn't say that, but I don't expect that to matter in his recruiting. I think this is strictly for player development.
I think it is totally for player development. And I'll just say it this way, and I don't know this or have any inside information, nor would I ever ask, and I don't want to know because it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But I think the schools that ultimately, I'll say that the top 3 schools that ultimately Trent Sicily will choose from when it comes down to the very end are already schools he has offers from. He's not going to Montverde to try to collect more offers. I think he's going there to become a better player, and that's the right reasons to go there. And I mean, he is going there with an open mind. I know he's rooming with a top 25 kid out of the state of Texas. He's going to get pushed. He's going to get better. I know they're expecting a lot of things out of him. I'm expecting good things from him. Here's the great part. He's going to go into games, and he's going to play in games where he's going to get treated very similarly to the way he's going to get treated in college. And when I say that, I mean like other teams are not going to double and triple team him. Like if he stayed at Heritage Hills, he's going to get double and triple teamed every game. He's going to play out of the post every game. And he's going to go to Montverde and get to play on the wing, get to be up and down the floor, not deal with double teams nearly to the extent he would here in Indiana. And so the decision is the right decision for the kid's player development, in my opinion. And why in the world would anybody criticize or scrutinize a kid's decision that it looks like he's going and doing just to improve his game? And that to me is the right decision. And I think in this scenario, I don't think it is for everyone, but I think in this scenario, this is 100% the correct decision for Trent.
Absolutely, and I agree. I always have agreed, and I think I've understood why the whole time. That's him. That he is a very coachable kid, and more like a sponge, wanting to soak in as much as he can. And so I'm looking forward to high school basketball. It does suck for Indiana high school basketball because it takes away these guys' opportunities to be all-stars. And
even though I think it's the right decision for him, like you and I, like we love Indiana basketball. I hate it for the state of Indiana basketball, but not IU. I mean, state of in the actual state and their high school basketball situation. Yes, I hate it, but it's a reality. And if it was my kid, I would 100% be having him do the same thing. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite and sit here and say that there's really any other way that they could have played this. This is the right decision for Trent Sicily as a player and as a kid and his development. And I think it in general and overall, when we look at this a year down the road, I think people will look at this as it was a smart decision.
With the success that Mike Woodson has had in the portal, how important is it that he has success this year in recruiting, especially a couple of these in-state high-level kids that he has not really landed yet?
I'll say it this way. It will make it. I don't think he really pays that close of attention to what we say. What we and
no doubt about that.
the true fans say, like I don't think he pays that close of attention to it or really cares, nor should he. I mean, the person we all look up to in Coach Knight, that was the goat of coaching at Indiana University, never cared. Now, does that mean he didn't listen to it or didn't see it or didn't react to it? No, because he did. He don't act like he didn't hear the voices out there. But he didn't really let it affect his process and the way that they were handling things and what they were trying to build. And I do feel like Coach Woodson's in that same situation. Would he be better off? Would he? I think he would be the first one to say it would make things better if they are able to land one or two of these in-state kids. Yes, it would make things better. Mostly, it'll make things better for the off seasons when you're dealing with us in these scenarios, talking about your success in recruiting and that stuff. And so, recruiting is one of the wars that you want to win as a coach. It's one of the battles that's out there, and you want to win that. Coaches are competitive. They want to win those wars and those battles. They go recruit a kid. They want to get them. And so I think in this scenario, I don't think Mike Woodson would panic or freak out, nor do I think he should. When Liam McNeely last year decommitted from Indiana and the end of the season didn't go the way we wanted it to, and we knew some kids would be transferring out in the portal and all of that, Jim, you and I sat here on this show and we said, hey, everybody relax. We are going to have a roster, and you're probably going to be proud of that roster when they put it on the floor next November. And we're exactly in that scenario. I'm not trying to give us credit. I'm just saying I'm not going to freak out if a bunch of guys go portal hunting and do all that, because Mike Woodson has been very successful at winning that portal game.
Yeah, and another point, Brian, that Brian made on the comment line from our YouTube comments is we don't know what the needs are going to be, the direct needs right now. We're assuming that Mackenzie Mbako will leave after this season. Umar Ballo will be gone, of course, but there's going to be guys that leave that we didn't expect to leave, that you don't know exactly what all holes you have to fill. You're not going to replace a Mackenzie Mbako with Trent Sicily right off the bat, I don't think, as a freshman. But that's great to have him in that fold. So there's a lot of facets. A lot of ins and outs, a lot of facets to the situation.
Yeah, there really is. And you said it exactly right, and I agree with you. We don't know what it's going to look like. This is the luxury, I guess, we have as fans to be able to kind of look ahead in that scenario. But I'll tell you, from a coach's and a staff's perspective, not just in Indiana, but I think all the staff, but they're looking right now. Yes, somebody has to be forecasting and recruiting what's out there in the future. But right now, they're looking at the 12, 13, 14, 15 kids that they have on their roster that they have to work with this year, and they're going to work with that to the best of their ability. I think something that's been overlooked, and I don't want to be in that category of overlooking it, that we should be insanely thankful for as Indiana Hoosiers basketball fans is the fact that Malik Renew is back here for a third season. I don't think, especially when Huchefino came in and left after 1 year, I don't think we all would have said we're going to have Malik for 3 seasons. And I hope we get him for a 4th season. But I'm not even going to stress and worry about that right now because I'm going to enjoy having him for a 3rd season because that wasn't a guarantee. But that's had Indiana lost that piece this year, that would have been a hole that would have been extremely difficult to fill. I think he has proven over 2 seasons he's reliable. If we can keep him out of foul trouble and keep him on the floor, he's reliable and a guy that's going to give you a double-ish every game. I think he's going to give us even more than that this upcoming season with not having Khalil Ware get as many touches as he was getting. Balo's going to get a lot of touches, but I'm telling you, he's going to be a substitution guy where he's going to play 6 minutes. He's going to come out. He's going to come back in for another 3-minute stint. He's going to come out, and that's going to be all he plays in the first half. And then the second half, he's going to do something similar. So I think we need to be thankful for the fact we have Malik Renew and are able to enjoy, the guys that we are going to have on the floor for Indiana University this year are guys that I'm not sure 2 years ago we would have thought we would have still had. And so let's just be thankful for that and enjoy it and build on what they have and hopefully have a breakthrough season because last year was not a successful season. And so I throw injuries out of it. Let's already assume, hey, we're going to have to deal with injuries. So let's not even use that as an excuse. Every school is going to deal with it at some point. So I like the makeup of what they have. I think they have a really good roster that has good potential to win a whole bunch of games. And I'm going to be excited about it rather than worrying about transfer portal next year already.
Todd Leary, the shot father from myjumpshot.com. We appreciate you, brother, as always. Look forward to, let's see, Todd will be moving to Fridays, I guess, beginning next week. So we may have to get you on this Friday just to get it started. Who knows?
Let's do it.
All right, brother. Have a great day and a great rest of your week, brother.
You too. Always enjoy it. Thanks.
You betcha. Todd Leary joining us here on the program as always. Don't forget coming up this Thursday, the Hulls family Never Lose Hoop golf outing at the golf club at Eagle Point. You can still sign up. There are a few spots left. Let's see me find that link that I need. Oh, that's up here. Boom. Events.golfstatus.com. Just go to events.golfstatus.com. That's events.golfstatus.com. And you can get signed up. Man, 3 hole-in-one contests, one for $10,000, 2 for $5,000. You get lunch. You get a sit-down dinner. There is silent auction with IU memorabilia. Let's see. I want to make sure you get a shirt for playing. There's going to be IU athletes there. There will be IU basketball players that are playing in the event. All kinds of fun things to look out and to look forward to. Most importantly, it benefits area kids and their families that have been affected by cancer. So get signed up, man. We've got a couple spots left, and we're looking forward to this week and the incredible weather that is going to happen for that. So events.golfstatus.com for the Jordan Hulls family Never Lose Hoop golf outing. Looking forward to that and much more, as that's this Thursday. So make sure you get signed up. We appreciate you. Or just be donate. You can be a whole sponsor for just $100. So appreciate you guys if you can participate in any way possible. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and we're back with it right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
How'd you like that timing?
Pretty good.
Did that just for you.
Makes life a lot easier.
I'm sure it do. It's a lot easier when I'm not worried about 80 things at once. So it allows me to do that.
We got
All right.
Dustin joining us now.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that email worked.
Yes, it is. Yes, it did.
Okay, cool. Oh, yeah, there he is. Perfect.
Hello, Mr. Dustin. How are you? How was your weekend, sir?
Good, Jim. How about yours?
Very relaxing. Didn't do much. Watched it rain half the time and enjoyed it. Enjoyed the heck out of it.
Good.
Did you guys make it out to Home Depot this weekend?
We did not make it out to Home Depot this weekend.
No time.
No time. You couldn't pull it off.
I just snuck one in a minute ago that no one caught. A lot of ins and outs, a lot of facets.
Yeah.
It sailed right by. Nobody caught it. I'm like, damn.
Unfortunate. People got to pick up on the old ones.
I'm telling you, man.
A lot of ins and outs.
And all of my producers are all like 12 years old. It seems like
1 minute.
Who was I? Oh, it was gosh darn it, David. Oh, who's the quarterback for New Orleans now? David Carr.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was after the game they were talking to him. He goes, they said, when did you realize you were the old man in the room? He goes, when I found out both our backups, neither had seen Major League.
30
And
seconds.
One of the others had not seen daggone it. Something else that was just hilarious. He's just shaking his head. So I'm like, yeah. I hear you, bro. I hear you.
15. And 5.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Yeah, baby, rocking it in for Dustin Dopirak as he joins us from the Indy Star. Welcome back here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Jim Coyle with you. And Dustin comes in rocking it, man.
Yes.
New walk-up music for the man. How was your weekend?
Good, man. Good. Not super. Didn't do anything that stands out. Just good relaxing Saturday. Good relaxing Sunday. So.
The Pacers schedule out. More national TV time.
Significant. Yeah. I mean, I think you knew that was going to happen after they made the Eastern Conference Finals. Not part of the big events, like opening day or Christmas or anything like that, but I think it's 9 games on either ESPN or TNT, 5 more on NBA TV. They'll be first. They got 2 in the first 5 games. They'll play, obviously, playoff rematches against the Knicks and the Celtics, the 25th on ESPN and the 30th on ESPN. Got a couple other that are streamed out. I got a couple, I think, against Cleveland. Got to pull this up to make sure I know what I'm talking about. I think their opener, their Milwaukee game in the in-season tournament. Obviously, another that also being a rematch is a national TV game. It very clearly can see that there's the league can see that there are some benefits to having the Pacers on TV, and that this team's a fun team to have on television. Yeah. There's enough storylines obviously just coming off of the way those playoff series went. I mean, they obviously interesting series, certainly against Milwaukee and New York in particular. Have some level of bad blood is not how far I would take it, but there's some rivalry brewing with the Bucks, and so getting them on TV together, I think, is a wise move. So those 3 are all national TV games inside of the first, inside of October and November. Obviously got the games in against San Antonio in Paris. They get to go play Wemby there, so that should be interesting. But Cleveland, New York, Milwaukee in the second half of the season. TNT, two TNT games against Cleveland. One against Milwaukee, one against and one against the Knicks on February 11th. They a lot of ways to make sure they get attention. They certainly can end up with more if they end up in the in-season tournament knockout round as they did last year. Last year, they only had one national TV game scheduled when the season began, but obviously earned 3 more by virtue of reaching the in-season tournament final. Certainly, there's more opportunities if they get back to Vegas. Interesting schedule the way it shakes out. You can tell that there's a difference in travel when they're trying to get you on TV because there were, I think, there are a couple road trips that do make geographical sense, but some where they're really bouncing around, which is sort of interesting. It's not like, do an East Coast trip and a West Coast trip. It's very clearly designed differently. It shakes out differently. It seems to be to make sure that they get on television. Seems to be the case. So making sure some of those marquee games fit themselves in some different windows, and they have some road trips that don't necessarily, that would usually fit in that don't. For instance, they would usually face Denver, along with their as part of a longer road trip, and there isn't one in there. They have a 1-game trip out to Denver, which is kind of strange. It's definitely a different schedule, but a sign that people care about the Pacers a little bit more now. Obviously, they're not the most televised team by any means, and I think every team that they've played in the playoffs is probably getting more TV time than they do. But there's still a recognition that they are, an Eastern Conference contender.
Yeah, Milwaukee, that came to mind quickly because Indiana, was they 4-1 against them last year in the regular season?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and Milwaukee expected to be a team that was competing for the NBA championship last year. So that got a lot of people's attention very quickly.
Sure. Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, even before, they beat them in the semifinals of the in-season tournament, but had already beat them before that, and beat them on nights when Giannis was spectacular. I mean, the only time they lost was when Giannis scored 64 points. I mean, they beat him on a night when he had 54. Which was amazing. They did not have an answer for him, but all the same, they were able to beat them in spite of him. And then obviously he missed the playoffs, which made a difference. Certainly they were fortunate enough to avoid him. And so you still. Damian Lillard pointed out when the season ended, when the Pacers, eliminated them, that, hey, man, I didn't get a camp with these guys. You got to remember that trade happened right before the season started. And so, they had a coaching change mid-season to go from Adrian Griffin to Doc Rivers. And so we'll see how that group changes, but they certainly have an opportunity, I think, to be an Eastern Conference contender. Certainly the Knicks do, having added Mikal Bridges, the 76ers do, having added Paul George, and certainly the Celtics, have every reason to believe that they can repeat, and win not just the East, but the entire title. So East is going to be something, I think. I mean, just that they're certainly, it's certainly a top-heavy team in the sense, top-heavy league in the sense of, I think there are 8 playoff teams, I think, are definitively better than everybody else. In the league, but I think each of those eight playoff teams you have to view as a contender. Certainly Philly was the 7 last season. I think you have reason to believe that they could, finish, they could win the East. They could be in the top 2. Certainly having Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey together, that's a potent big 3. Again, the Knicks adding Bridges to already having Brunson, re-signing Anunoby. Let me think. Still having DiVincenzo. Still having Miles McBride. Some of those guys. Josh Hart. They've got some real players in that team. But the Pacers belong. The Magic adding Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They're a little bit of an older. They're maturing a little bit. I was really impressed by some of their guys. Franz Wagner obviously had a really good FIBA. An Olympic tournament. That Orlando team is tough. I think Cleveland is going to have a new coach, but I think they still have a couple of good players. Donovan Mitchell certainly leading that group. I think he's as good as guard as there is in the East. It is going to be a dogfight to get back. It's not going to be easy for the Pacers to get back to where they were last year, but I think they belong as part of that group.
Mid-November, the Pacers will host the Heat and Khalil Ware, former Hoosier, on for the group stage of the NBA Cup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that'll be interesting to see just kind of where he shakes out. Obviously, Bam Adebayo is their starting center, and Bam had a really productive Olympics. Bam is still the guy, and got a big extension this summer, got well paid. So Kelaware is not going to come in there and take Bam Adebayo's job, but Kelaware is going to play. I think he probably had among the best, performances in, NBA Summer League, just of anybody in that event. He was one of the best guys. So I think he showed himself showed out well. Just made a good case for being the type of guy who gets to be an understudy and gets to be a good second unit center and get opportunities that way. And your second unit matters, especially during the regular season. Basically, that's what gets you in places. Obviously, the Pacers, that was one of the most important things they had, is the higher scoring bench in the NBA, and that's a big reason why they got to where they got to. It's a big reason why they ended up with where they did in the playoffs, because that bench really produced. TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin, I think, were 1-2 in total points in the bench, off the bench in the playoffs. And so I think that was certainly really important for those guys. And it matters. Basically, it really matters. Even if you're only playing 15 minutes a game, those 15 minutes matter. You don't want to have a big drop off. You don't want to be the type of team that puts in second unit and fades. And so where I think has the opportunity to be a really important player for the Heat as a second unit guy.
And not only that, Bam Adebayo, a great person to learn from. He, like you said, he is played outstanding, and Kelaware Ware had a great summer in the summer league and showed his talent. So what a great spot for him to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Bam does things that not a lot of people, I would say not a lot of people do, but one of the most important things that you could do as a center at this point defensively is being able to be a good switcher, be really good at switching on ball screens, be really good at being able to contain a point guard when you come off, basically, when you get screened, when your guy screens, when your 5-man screens a point guard's defender, and you can switch basically in that case and be able to still keep that point guard from getting by you. Bam Adebayo is as good as there is in the league at that. And so if you're Kelaware, that's the type of thing you need to learn. You need to have somebody to really get across to you just the importance of that, and what it requires just from a technical standpoint, from a footwork standpoint. So that's really big. I mean, where Strugby is okay at that. Obviously, I certainly didn't watch that part of his game extremely closely, but it's it is mission critical in the NBA at this point when you get drafted into the league to be the sort of guy that can contain a point guard getting downhill. So that I think is going to be really good. Again, just all those little things that a guy like that can do. Certainly, he's a guy that's led teams to taking the Heat, helped take the Heat to the finals twice. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is a big piece of that, but Bam was major in both cases, getting them to where they got in the 2020 in the bubble season, and then 2023 last year. In both cases, surprising a lot of teams by taking the Heat to the finals, and a lot of that I think had to do with what Adebayo did as a defender, both as a rim protector and as a ball screen switch guy.
What can fans expect difference in the Pacers? I mean, it's such a great game last year. You're making it to the conference finals. So a little bit of pressure on them now because that was kind of unexpected. So now it becomes the expected.
Sure. No, I mean, I don't think that there's necessarily a get back to the Eastern Conference Finals and we're firing everybody sort of deal. Obviously, a lot of people got paid. Or are set up to get paid, basically. And that's kind of a big piece to it, that there is the money factor. I think that they have, a lot of guys got rewarded. The issue on that is, that then you have a much more highly paid team, and, everybody individually, there's a lot of, are you living up to the contract that you got? Tyrese Halliburton's contract kicks in. Pascal Siakam got a 4-year max deal. Obviously he's a guy that's proven, but it's a question of, okay, was it worth it for his age? That he's 30. And so it's like, okay, are you going to get the max benefit from that? Obi Toppin got a 4-year, $60 million deal. Andrew Nembhard got a 3-year, $59 million deal. deal that kicks in next year. It's going to be a lot tighter, and so yeah, there is going to be an expectation. They're going to have a standard they're going to have to hold themselves to. They're not the team that's going to come in and surprise anybody anymore. Everybody's going to expect them. Everybody wants to beat them. Even the teams that are technically expected to, I think the Knicks and the Bucks are probably still going to be expected to finish higher than them, even though the Pacers beat them in the playoffs. The Knicks and the Bucks carry chips on their shoulders on that basis. Absolutely, some of the best teams in the league want to get these guys and want to get them bad. Certainly, and the Pacers make noise. And I mean on a physical, literal sense. They talk, and so there are teams that are going to want to beat them for that reason. So that is gonna change things. There are gonna be some teams that want to wipe the smile off the Pacers' faces. So that's gonna be different. And there is gonna be some level of there is gonna be some level of pressure. I think it. Again, I don't think there's certainly not a must win this season, or it's all going to fall apart situation. But their window begins. You can start using the term window now. Because of these contracts, because you could say, okay, you've got 4 years with Pascal Siakam. You've obviously dedicated enough money to him to believe that he's your guy with Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously Halliburton can be around for a lot longer, but you've got, Miles Turner's got 1 more year on his contract. And so it's like this group, you don't know what they're going to do with Turner because they're getting tight as far as, they're well above the cap now. They're close to the luxury tax. And so if you start re-signing people at more and bigger contracts, you're starting getting into aprons that take away your flexibility. I mean, there becomes more limitations to you on what you can do with trades. So it's basically they've established mostly who their group is going to be, and I think that makes a difference. I think that changes the way your team gets looked at, the way you look at yourselves. You have to realize there's not a lot of further cavalry coming in. This is your group. This is the team that you've got to win with. And if it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go early on, that can create some kind of tension and some kind of concerns. And you have to battle through that. I mean, obviously, if you have a bad November, that doesn't mean that you're not going to make it. And you got to, be able to rely on certain things. Certainly they had, not great stretches last year. They didn't have long, bad stretches last year. I think their longest losing streak was maybe 4 or 5 games, somewhere in that range. They didn't have a lot of it. So yeah, Brian says, I don't know the defense will be any better. They don't have better players, better defensive players than they had last year. I think they could get better statistically on the basis of they kind of know who their group is. You got to remember last year, they got Bruce Brown. They didn't have Siakam. Starting lineup was different. Defensively, they functioned different. They had Nembhard and Nesmith coming off the bench. They certainly decided those were their 2 best defensive players. I don't think Brown was as much of a lockdown guy as they hoped he was going to be. He was certainly a good defender. I don't know if he came off as a great defender. So we'll see how that goes. But having, they go in presuming, unless things change drastically, probably have the same starting 5, probably have the same scenario with Nembhard and, Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, Turner is probably going to be your starting 5. Mathurin obviously has a chance to play his way into that, but I think otherwise they really like how those units work. And so, again, we'll see how that goes, but that at least says, all right, you're going to start the year with your best 2 defenders, your best 2 perimeter defenders in that lineup. Obviously, you have your best shot blocker in there already. I think Siakam is a good team defender. Or can be a good team defender, and that can make them a lot better as the season goes. Certainly, I think he had to get used to the way they played defense. He's mentioned this, that he had to get used to the style of defense that they played with the Pacers versus what they play with Toronto. It's sort of just different focuses. I mean, the Pacers were very intentional in terms of the shots they were willing to give up last year, even though, their defense as a whole wasn't very good, but their plan basically was to take away open threes, and they didn't want to allow a lot of shots in the paint. They still did, but basically the way they played, pick and roll, they were mostly 2-on-2. They didn't do a lot of tagging off. And there were shots that they basically allowed. They were trying to get you to take a long two, was sort of the point. And if you hit it, you hit it. And they would live with that. But I mean, they gave up, I think, the fewest threes in the league. So my point in saying that is that, Siakam was just figuring that out, basically only played half a season. So he's going to, I think, have a better sense of how he fits as a team defender, which matters, I think, because he's a really good help side guy, because he can run at you with all that kind of length. I think he makes a difference. So you have those pieces together. Obviously, as Brian also mentioned in the comments there, Tyrese Halliburton is not the best on-ball defender in the world. He's a good off-ball defender. He's very good at getting into passing lanes, getting his hands on balls, and getting steals. He's not very good at locking a guy up when he's driving at him. And so he obviously has a couple some time to get some physical development done before he gets to camp. There's still about 5 weeks left before they get into preseason camp. So he's got some time to get himself in the weight room. Did not see a lot of great defense from him in the Olympics. And he's right. Brian's right in saying that the reason he get on the floor is because he's not a great defender. And the other backup point guard was, option B there was Derek White. Derek White is one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, second team all defense along with Drew Holiday. So they had Holiday and White together. Sometimes or separate, basically that those two guys were taking a lot of minutes that Halliburton could have had. And, again, they got those minutes because they're, two of the best defenders in the league. And that's why the Celtics are champions and Pacers aren't. So there is that issue, obviously. But I do think there are ways they're going to be a better defensive team. Are they going to be a great defensive team? No. They're sort of still looking at it as they're a great offensive team. If they can just get into the 20s as far as where they rank defensively, that can go a long way. And so can they get there? Probably, maybe. We'll see. But are they, I don't expect them to be a top 10 defense in terms of efficiency or in terms of scoring defense or any major category. But I think they can be a top 20 defense, and that can make them good enough if they can still score at the level that they were. That's good enough to keep them in that. It basically to keep them as a contender. Does that put them in the Celtics realm? Well, no. Does it make it competitive with them in a 7-game series? Probably. Are they going to win 60 games like Boston did? Probably not.
And we mentioned Tyrese. He's the star of this team, and
sure,
even though they got Pascal Siakam, who is just as important. But he has to, and I'm talking about who I was just talking about. I'm drawing a blank already.
We're talking about Halliburton. We're talking about Siakam.
Halliburton. He knows he has to get better at defense.
Sure.
That he has to be better. The whole team knows this. So this is up to the team to make these differences because as you've stated, their team is on the floor. That's pretty much. They have to go out and all improve on that to make that team better.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in Halliburton, and to me, in Halliburton's case, it's physical. I mean, I think I say this all the time. He is one of the smartest basketball minds you'll ever meet. Like, you have a conversation with Tyrese, like he gets the game at a level that not many people on earth do. And so he knows what his problem is. I mean, frankly, he laid it out for me. Like I asked him, going into the 2023 offseason, what do you think, where do you have to get better on ball and off ball defensively? He said, man, I'm elite off ball. I know where the ball is going to go. And so I can get steals that way. Like I know what every team is going to do. He's like, my problem is I got pushed around, like Tyrese has been skinny his whole life. Like Tyrese has never been a huge weight room fan. And Tyrese has been skinny his whole life. And there's a reason why. I was little growing up. So and I'm not big now, but I get, I look at Tyrese and you see, you see like stuff that you remember if you were a skinny kid. He is skinny. Like he is. I mean, like you looked at him standing next to LeBron James, and you're like, those guys are on the same Olympic team. Like, how is that possible? But I mean, like he's a wizard. He is a genius. He and Rick Carlisle uses the term he's an artist. I mean, what he does with a basketball, how he sees the pieces move on a basketball court is incredible. He has an absolute gift for that. But physically, he is not a big, bulky guy, and you need some muscle to play good on-ball defense in this league. You've got to make sure that someone can't push you back, that someone can't drive at you. And Tyrese got straight pushed around a couple times when he was on the floor defensively. And so that's got to be a focus. And it might not be enough, one off season. And because he's played for FIBA, played for Team USA the last 2 summers, that's changed up his development. He's focused on those things. And I would, and again, this is me saying I would have done what he did a million times over. This experience you don't get to get. Like, I mean, even just being on the bench for this team, like that's once in a lifetime. Like if you're Tyrese Halliburton, you'd never pass that up in 1,000 years. But was there a cost? Yeah. Like that's time you can't spend in the weight room. That's time you got to be ready to play. You can't be out there maxing out on your bench when there's a chance you might have to shoot later. Like you have to lift weights, you have to do something to maintain, but you're not bulking up. Like your weight training is different when you're playing games than when you're not. Like there's a maintenance factor versus a building muscle factor, and it's different because you're not trying to mess up your shot. You're trying not like when you get into an off season, you can do that. It doesn't matter if how good of a shooter you are in the middle, in late July, but it does when you're playing in the Olympics. So I mean, there's got to be physical transformation for him to get to be a better defensive player, and it might not be. He might not have enough time this summer to make that happen. For him to be a great defensive player, he's going to have to get physically bigger, stronger, more physical. And that's probably going to take a couple years.
Yep. Well, we'll certainly see. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us right now here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got more coming up right after this break.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
When does the Pacers kick it off as far as the preseason?
I think so their first, let me pull it up. Their first preseason game is October 8th. I think they haven't said this for sure yet, but they told me, it'll probably be the last week of September will be the beginning of camp. But that's probable. That's not for sure. But that's usually where it is right around the last week of September, or maybe just the last days, because I think the 30th is a Monday, and so it might be that week.
When September ends.
Anyway, yeah. What was I going to say? So yeah, no, they're so that's about when they're looking at. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of the guys are in Indy already, but they'll just be doing stuff on their own. There's not like mini camp or anything like that leading up to. So we'll see how that all goes. You've been going to practice, IU football practice? What do you think?
I can't get out there. It's during the daggone show, man.
Oh, okay.
It stinks.
They're going early? They're going early?
We got about 1 minute.
Okay.
It stinks. Even the coaches are before I can get there. So once the season starts, then the Mondays will go back to how they used to be with noon and all that. But
sure.
Yeah, it stinks.
Maybe to get to camp. Okay. That sucks. I have heard they're not super never mind.
No, you can say it.
The access. How is? I should ask. As far as how's access?
I don't, to be honest with you, because of
15 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, we'll cut it off.
And 5.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. We've talked plenty of Indiana Pacers as they're a ways off, as is college basketball, but no point in we can always talk about it. Football coming up, of course. Dustin, I'm assuming he's a big Steelers fan, Pittsburgh guy. Yinza, he's a Yinza. So, what are your expectations for the Steelers this year, man? The Steelers are like the Cardinals in baseball. You can generally always count on them for being competitive at the very least. And that's kind of last year that, boy, little they took some dents in that.
Yeah, I mean, they still haven't had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. So you're talking going back to, was it 06? Let me look here. I look at I should know this off my like by heart, but yeah, I mean, Mike Tomlin's been the head coach since 2007. They have at no point had a losing season. 10-7, a playoff team. I mean, really the last couple of years, obviously, last two seasons, the post Roethlisberger era, it's been shaky. They've had some just okay seasons in recent years. As you saw at the end of the Roethlisberger era, and obviously them kind of move on. And Kenny Pickett didn't work out as well as they had hoped. So they're a team in flux because their quarterback situation is new. Obviously went out and got Russell Wilson, went out and got Justin Fields. And Kenny Pickett was like, I'm not interested in competing with that, so I'm out. And he's stuck in and so he's not going to compete for that job because he's not going to be no one's giving him a chance to beat Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts. So, it's an interesting scenario. I think it was good for them, obviously. Pickett being a Pitt guy, I think really gave everybody in the city there was sort of a lot of, because he was a Pitt guy. I mean, he's from New Jersey originally, but it was like, oh, we have to have, how cool would it be to have a Pitt guy as a starting quarterback? It's sort of like, what it would mean if the Pacers got some IU star in the starting lineup. I mean, it's just like that kind of deal of, oh, let's connect to the school and that kind of thing. Like this guy was your favorite before, Kenny Pickett was as good, his senior season at Pitt was, he was top 5 on the Heisman. Haven't seen that in a while at Pitt. And so, I mean, they've certainly, really since Larry Fitzgerald was the last time that like Pitt had somebody that big on the national stage. They've certainly been good for the last 20 years. That really, the 90s, they were pretty terrible, but they got better, kind of late 90s, early 2000s. They've been okay for all that stretch. But Pickett had as good of a quarterback season as anybody in that period. So a lot of people were behind him. A lot of people were rooting for him. But I think you looked at the AFC and you saw, well, like if you're going to go to the Super Bowl, like look at who you have to go through, like as far as quarterbacks is concerned. I mean, like it's not just Pat Mahomes, it's Josh Allen, it's Justin Herbert, it's Trevor Lawrence, it's, it's Lamar Jackson. I mean, there's just so much quarterback talent in the AFC at this point. And so it's like, if your guy's just okay, that's not good enough. That's not going to cut it. Like you can't have like just a good game manager guy and get to the Super Bowl if you're in the AFC, because you have to beat generational guys. I mean, like, in Mahomes, you have to beat a guy who's going to be an all-timer. That's very clear what we're talking about. He's going to be in the pantheon, in terms of best quarterbacks that have ever played the game. So that's the type of guy you got to beat. And the Steelers had issues for that, obviously beating Brady. And, they had, Roethlisberger was there, you could argue it's the best quarterback they've ever had. It's basically a 1A, 1B argument with him and Bradshaw. And so that was still difficult. So it's just like having a guy that you can get the sense that like the ceiling for him is just okay, is just a pretty good NFL quarterback. They needed, sort of a higher ceiling. And obviously Wilson, has won Super Bowls in the past. Obviously, you don't presume that you're getting the best ever version of Russell Wilson at this point. But I think he's probably a step up. And I still have high hopes for Justin Fields. And maybe that's just the, former college beat writer in me talking and remembering what he looked like at Ohio State. Because look, at Ohio State, he looked like he'd walk on water. Sometimes, I mean, he was just magnificent. So, obviously haven't seen the same with the Bears necessarily, but he's had some moments. where he seemed pretty special. And I think just between the arm talent and the speed, you're like, well, there's a good quarterback in there someplace. You get all the pieces together, it works. Don't know that he had all the support that you need to be really good with the Bears. And maybe there's a Bears fan on here who will tell me I'm an idiot, which is altogether possible because I don't follow the Bears that closely. So I could be totally wrong about that. But just seemed like having, a franchise in the Steelers that has, more, winning history, certainly has some pieces coming together as far as offensive line is concerned. Certainly just has a staff that is used to winning, that there's some capacity for him to become a much better player. They've got to get some of the things right. The wide receivers are just okay. They've been in this discussion for whether or not they're going to get Brandon Ayuk for feels like a month. Now, more or less, they've been, just sort of directly in these talks with the 49ers trying to get him. And so, yeah, there's a lot of other pieces. Like I said, they're just okay, but they have, a couple great defensive players. Highsmith, the TJ Watt, on that linebacking core, they've added some pieces defensively. They look like they can be okay. So we'll see what they turn into. I don't consider them, an AFC contender necessarily, but I think they have a chance to get back in the playoffs again, but do so with more sort of hope for the immediate future, I think. So we'll see what happens. They'll be okay. They're the Steelers. They'll find a way to win 9 or 10 games.
Yeah, looking for Caleb Williams, a great battle going on there. You've got Roma Dunze, who is he's going to be playing regardless because he's catching the balls from one of those two. But no quarterback battles at Indianapolis as Anthony Richards is set to take over again this year as long as he can stay healthy, as Indianapolis has done a job of trying to keep him guarded in this preseason. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And if people don't think football is the popularity, look at the preseason games and how crowded they are. It's crazy. And knowing it's different than say, when Indiana has its Hoosier hysteria for basketball or Kentucky does, and you get the big crowds. The thing is, you're going to see the top level players play. In these situations in the NFL preseason games, you're not. If you do, it's like for a cup of coffee, maybe half a cup of coffee. It'll be cold by the time they're out already.
You play game 3. You play game 3 in basically the starters play game 3 usually out of the preseason games. You don't. Game 1 and 2 is about getting everybody in there. Game 4 is about making your final roster decisions. Figuring out, okay, who are guys 45 through 55 and who are the guys that you're going to stick on practice squad. What are those last decisions that you're trying to make in terms of who makes the team and who doesn't make the team. That's what game 4 is about. Game 3 is the dress rehearsal. And so, that's what's coming out. The Colts play game 2. They didn't play Richardson in game 2. So we'll see if he gets some opportunities in that. Obviously, with a guy's coming off an injury, you might look at it differently. But you throw some of your skill position players in, you throw some of your younger players in there. Let them make some plays, let them have some opportunities. And some guys I think had some good moments. I did not watch Colts Cardinals on Saturday night. I definitely when I'm not covering preseason football, I'm not watching preseason football. If I'm watching sports, I'm watching baseball. It's like I'm very, I still have that little kid rage against the end of summer thing going. Yeah. I definitely late August. I'm like, no, man, no, summer's still going. I'm raging against it, and it's not until Labor Day weekend because I love football, but I don't watch any football until Labor Day weekend because I'm just okay, I'll watch a week 0 game if it counts. But I'm not trying to watch preseason football because that tells me summer's ending and I'm not cool with that. I still have that school kid view of the thing that I'm hanging on until it's over. But no, you look at the box score. It has, good moments from, their backup quarterbacks, Sam Ellinger, Keaton Slovis, and Jason Bean were 19 of 27 for 190 yards, threw 1 pick, didn't throw a touchdown, but, reasonably efficient. Not a lot of missed passes there. That's all right. Xavier Scott had, a nice performance, 11 for 55 out of the backfield. Tyler Goodson's all right. Certainly coming off of that, I think Tyler was the one who dropped the pass, if I'm not mistaken, in the playoffs. So coming off of that and having some productive stuff. Laquan Treadwell, old name from Ole Miss, had a nice night, 7 catches, 72 yards. So, they had some decent, performances from some guys, lower on the depth chart, or, kind of mid-level starters type guys. So they had some good moments. I think, they're a team that's got some talent. They've got a chance, I think, to be a playoff team, to have an opportunity to get in. And so we'll see what Richardson looks like, but I think they were smart in terms of how they handled this so far. And you'll probably see a little bit more of them in game 3 in terms of who's actually going to play for them.
Absolutely. And Major League Baseball season coming, starting to eke its way toward the end. The National League Central Division is just every year there's something that you look at it and you're like, really? This year it is from second place back. There is a difference of 2.5 games, but that's because the Cardinals, who are in second place, are already 11 games behind Milwaukee.
Yeah, the set, like everybody in the Central was in.
They were in. I think we lost Dustin there for a second. We'll get him back, and if not, it's because we're talking about the Central Division in the National League, which has been something. Whoo! Yeah, the Brewers, they're leading it. They've got an 11-game lead. Dustin coming back on there, joining us here. Yeah, Dustin, that Central Division, it's always something that there's always craziness when you look at that division. Well, we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Grateful for Dustin joining us here on the program today of the Indy Star. We've got more to talk about when we come back. Brought to you by our good friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry down in Sellersburg for our listeners down in Southern Indiana. Keep that championship smile. Go see Dr. J. Back with more right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
All right. We go back at 138, 26.
Over and under IU catches Purdue looking ahead 0.0%. There's not even a number that Indiana State catches any team of that ilk sleeping. They just don't have the firepower. I say that's about 2.0000002% too high. Oh, we've got those clips. We'll hear those.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Got about a minute and 10.
I used the second Bryant Haynes clip.
The one on Ball State?
No, the second one that you told me about.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then Mr. Shanahan.
And it is looking very cloudy here in Central Indy today. About 30 seconds. All right, in 3, 2.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Thank you so much for starting your week with us. Got it going and heading in the right direction now. As by the time we get to the end of this week, we will be college football. The college football season will be upon us as week 0 comes to us this Saturday, and then the real stuff starts the following week. Don Fischer starts with us next Monday. Don't forget, and Todd Leary will move to Fridays, so we may have him on again this Friday just to jumpstart that. And so also, not only is August 31st Indiana's first football game, but a big reunion taking place as Indiana basketball has scheduled a reunion for the August 31st. How do you get fans to come to the Florida International game? Well, you have an IU basketball reunion. That should jumpstart things. We're talking 5 national titleists, all the Big Ten champions, anybody that's been involved with any of that is with us and able. They'll probably be attending that. That's also the same weekend as Jalen Harrelson will be visiting IU basketball. So I don't think they could have picked a better weekend for his visit to have all those potential superstars that are there. I don't know who all will make it. Will guys like Isaiah Thomas be there? That would be pretty big. Of course, there will be several that we do know that are around and can make it there, but schedules matter. So we'll see who all makes it in for that. Very, very cool that is happening. A little surprising to me that I get that it's happening during football season, but I guess that's because there are so many of these guys that are still involved in basketball elsewhere. And that's probably about the latest that they can still get them to come to be able to make it to Bloomington before their duties with whatever they're doing begins. There are several guys that are coaching. There are several players that are still playing, that are playing in the NBA. What's Indiana have, like 8, 9 guys in the NBA right now? Then there are several guys that are working in front offices as well as other positions. So that should be something that is just simply spectacular. I don't recall this happening during the season before. I think they usually do this stuff in the summer, which now it makes they're using it to make much more sense because they can actually use this as a recruiting tool. They can use it as a tool to get people to football games, and so starting to make things work together and combine themselves. And then you've got the new B-Town Boulevard set up for football. I'm sure that if you didn't see that, check that out. Indiana trying to do some things for football to make the game day experience better for fans. Rivals Rob Cassidy is high on Indiana basketball of Limb Landing. Not only Braylon Mullins, but Jalen Harrelson as well, and Bryson Tiller. So not only should that make people feel good, Rob will be with us tomorrow. We'll talk about that. And but that has to make Indiana fans feel all kinds of warm and fuzzy with Mullins, Harrelson, and Bryson Tiller. According to Rob Cassidy, Indiana's in good shape for that. That would be one heck of a haul for a recruiting class, period. Cotter Stallions, University of Michigan's sign-stealing mastermind, is now the defensive coordinator for a high school in Detroit. So you got to wonder what high school would hire a guy. What school would hire someone who was at the dead center of one of the biggest cheating scandals in recent memory in college football? What message are you sending to these kids? That blows my mind. I'm not saying that this guy should never get a second chance, and I'm not saying he was the mastermind, because in actuality, I highly doubt it that he was the mastermind. Maybe he did come up with it, but he had to have a lot of help to make all that stuff work. Regardless of that, he was deeply entrenched in that. What the heck are we doing? What are we doing here, Brian? When you hire a guy at a high school level the next year to be around kids, this is not a couple of years. He's paid no pittance. I just that's very aggravating. So you got that going for you, which is nice, I guess. Brian Haynes, Indiana football's defensive coordinator, recently spoke with the media. Nick, what was it? This particular? Oh yeah, what was he asked? What was the question that he was asked?
Basically, it's like one of the reporters just asked him, like, is just on his daily life when he's not at practice or actively with the team, is he still thinking of ways to improve the game? And I thought it was a pretty funny answer to this.
Coach over here. I'm kind of curious with your passion for coaching. Do you find yourself like at dinner or taking a walk or something coming up with unique ways to say attack the quarterback or attack the offense? I'm just kind of curious on how you approach that and if it's like a 24/7 with you.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's not a challenge for me. I'm kind of obsessed with the game, so I'm okay with it. My girlfriend's probably not. She probably wants to talk about normal dinner conversation. But, if there's a good two-latch pressure out there that I think up, then I'm going to want to talk about it. And she usually hears me out, so she's a good sport about it.
Brian Haynes, Indiana's defensive coordinator, a longtime assistant to Curt Cignetti in his 10th season with Coach Cignetti. But looking forward to seeing that defense this year and how it gets rolling. That is going to be very, very important for Indiana because we know that, or expecting the offense to be a higher octane offense than what Indiana fans have seen recently, without question, as Curt Cignetti's offense throws for a lot of yards. And you've got Mr. Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, still pulling the strings. He also spoke with the media. Let's hear what Coach Shanahan had to say.
I was going to ask Coach Haynes this too, but you've both been with Coach Cignetti for a while. I know assistant coaching tends to be, kind of a profession where you bounce around a lot. What has kind of kept you with Coach Cignetti? What is, when he's moved from stop to stop, what's made it the right decision for you to stay with him?
Yeah, well, I really enjoy working with him and working for him. He's a guy who I've learned a lot from since 2016, my first job with him at IUP, coaching the receivers, and just continue to learn. And I feel like I get pushed every single day to be the best that I can be. And he does a good job of, bringing every person in the building is, somebody that has high character and fun to be around, and it makes coming to work every day very enjoyable, whether it's with the coaches, the players, anybody on the staff. So, it's kind of no-brainer for me.
Stay on your left with Todd, and then we'll go to Matt.
Mike, kind of filling in on that same theme, was there a moment since 2016 where, you had that moment where you really felt like you clicked with Coach Cignetti? And also, how do your offensive philosophies kind of run in tandem with his after he's been an offensive coach for his career? How's that kind of meshed over your time with him?
Yeah, to answer your first question, can you give me your first question again?
Yeah, but is there a moment that, you realize that this is the
guy
you wanted to kind of get your start to?
I got you. No, there's not one particular moment. I feel like we've been through a couple different spots, different schools, different levels, and I think naturally when he kept continuing to climb, a goal of mine was to coach at this level, and so whenever he presented the opportunity, I jumped on it right away, and to answer your question, second question, I just felt like we do mesh and see the game the same way. We have the same core principles and values, the things that you've heard him speak about. But also when it comes to, scheme or fundamentals, X's and O's, we're definitely aligned, and everybody in our offensive staff room is aligned.
There was Coach Shanahan, the offensive coordinator for Indiana, and before that, of course, Brian Haynes, the defensive coordinator for Indiana. And looking forward to things kicking off. 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, and getting the new era, the Cignetti era underway. I know there's a lot of excitement. Someone asked a minute ago about they couldn't remember about yes, there is a 10% increase, and there has been a 10% increase in season ticket sales for this football season. And I think that it's just going to be a different year. We're used to watching the fans do certain things, but we're also used to Indiana football being a head scratcher, something that is completely without continuity. I think that changes. That continuity is going to arrive, and I think that now when Indiana's going to win a heck of a lot more games than what fans are used to. They're not going to go undefeated. They're not going to win the Big Ten this year. I know Coach Cignetti would be very not happy to hear me say something like that. But I'm not. While I have been very, very high on this team, this staff, this season, I'm also trying to stay within reason here. But how high they get, that's what I think is going to surprise people. They were picked by the media to finish second to last in front of Purdue. And the mere fact that I think the bottom is 7 wins for this team. So a team that can go 7-5 that was selected to go second to last, that's coach of the year stuff for me. And I know that it's a lot of the times it's hard to beat people, especially if Ryan Day at Ohio State, who is expected to have a great year. If they do what they're supposed to do, it's hard to beat those guys out a lot of the time, but they're supposed to do that. They have that talent. They didn't have to turn a program around. If Cignetti does what I think he's going to do, I cannot imagine him not seeing or winning coach of the year. Just because of all of the change that has had to happen, not only of the change, but the change that has had to happen at a place where it just hasn't, no matter what. I mean, there have been brief moments. We know that, but I don't see this as an anomaly. It's not something that's going to happen this season only. This is just the beginning. So Robert says that my feet are on the fire on this one. Hey, I don't back down from any of it. I agree with you. It is. I'm taking a stance that I think that they're going to shock a lot of people, and that's because I do. I just believe that the changes that have been made, and in addition to the schedule, in addition to all the changes to the teams that are on that schedule, it all works in Indiana's favor. Everything. The assistant or the offensive and defensive coordinator that we just heard from, those guys all look and seem so young. But I'm not saying they're not, but they've all been with Cignetti for between 6 and 10 years. It's crazy. That was one of the questions to Shanahan. They enjoy working for a winner, for one thing. Doesn't matter where it was. And we'll see how that moves forward. Brian says if Oregon beats Ohio State at home and wins the Big Ten, Dan Lanning will be coach of the year. I can't argue with that. That's, exactly what I was saying. It's hard to beat some of these guys out, and I agree with you. That would make it very, very tough. although I think that it depends. If Indiana was able to surprise people more than I think so, we'll have to see. Yeah, what a great day it was, man. Fun. Busy show today. Nick has done a fantastic job, Nick, the producer, and we're all proud of him and very, very happy. Big appreciation going out to Greg Rakestraw, of course, for joining us on the program today. Todd Leary, the shot father as well, Dustin Dopirak, and great to hear from Brian Haynes and Mr. Coach Shanahan. We are back tomorrow to do it all again, of course. Grande Kooser, Mike DeCourcy, and Rob Cassidy from Rivals. He's high on Indiana basketball. Big thanks to each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here, and we're grateful for you. We're back tomorrow to do it all again and run it up. Until then, go out and have yourselves a great day. I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.